Okay, verehrte Damen und Herren, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We're going to speak about learning German, but not just learning German, we're learning it with history, Anglo-German history specifically. My name is Kai von Pahlen. I'm an honorary consul of Germany in Bristol. I have been in the UK for more than 22 years now, but I was born and raised in Germany. And I'm here today with my friend Catherine. Now, Catherine, you are English, are you not?
Well, my father would say I'm British because my father's Welsh. But yes, for the sake of the fact that I've lived in Bristol for 20 years, I'm British, I'm English. But I lived in Germany for a while, about 22 years ago when I was a student, and was based in Mannheim and just fell in love with it and enjoy learning about the language and eating the good chocolate.
Well, the England-Wales distinction is actually a very interesting one because I always tend to say that the English and the Germans are very closely related to each other. The Germans and the Welsh, not so much. But we'll see about that. I'll explain. Now, when we talk about Germany, what does that actually mean? Now, in Germany, Germany is not called Germany, it is called Deutschland. Why? Because the word Deutsch means the language of the people. So when somebody used to say, back in the day when they said they speak Deutsch, that just meant our language or the language of our people. That's why the word Dutch sounds so similar, because it used to mean exactly the same thing. Deutsch, Dutch, language of the people. Of course, nowadays, Deutsch means German. So Deutschland means Germany. And that raises the question, what does England mean? I'm not going to tell you straight away, but you will know by the end of this video. I'm going to teach you a couple of interesting and important German words. The first one is Volk, or plural, Völker. And that means the people. On the screen here, you're looking at the Reichstag building in Berlin, on which you can see the word dem deutschen Volke, which means to the German people, or dedicated to the German people. Now, you of course will have recognized the word Volk already because you know the popular car brand Volkswagen. If you translate it literally, it means the wagon or the car of the people.
Yeah, Volkswagen is a German automobile manufacturer established in 1937 under the Nazi Party, who wanted to create a car that every German family could afford.
Oh man, so Volkswagen is such a nice brand, and it was created under the Nazis, you say?
Yeah, so it would seem.
That's just fantastic.
Fanta was invented in Nazi Germany too, when a trade embargo stopped the German Coca-Cola branch from importing their usual ingredients. They had to use their imagination to come up with a new product. The German for imagination is Fantasie.
So they had to create something that tasted just as fantastic, or fantastisch in German, as Coca-Cola. Now, let me give you another German word, wandern. Again, very important one, and you might have heard of it. It means to go hiking, to go out in the outdoors, to walk in the outdoors, which is of course something the Germans famously like to do. And we even have our own word for it. Catherine?
Yeah, Wanderlust or Wanderlust is a strong desire to go hiking and or travel the world.
Indeed, indeed. Now, if we combine these two words that we have now learned, Volk and Wandern, we get the word Völkerwanderung, which means migration of the people.
A Völkerwanderung was the large-scale migration of Germanic tribes from 300 to 600 AD, causing the fall of the Roman Empire.
Ah, that was not so nice, but some good things came of it as well. Specifically here, we had a Germanic tribe called Angeln. or the Angles. And these Angles used to live in the area that is nowadays Schleswig-Holstein in northern Germany, the most northern part of Germany. And they moved from these lands in Schleswig-Holstein, northern Germany, to the well-established Roman ports in Britain. And that is where they settled and stayed and started to push all these British people who were already there into some other parts of the country, specifically into Wales, where your dad is from.
The Angles are the namesake of the English language. The German word for English is English.
So I think you see where that is going. These Angles took over the area that is nowadays England. And which is why we still have many words in the English and the German language that are either very similar or almost the same, identical. And the same cannot be said for the Welsh language and the English language. Even though the Welsh are the immediate neighbors of the English, their language is quite different. Whereas in German, if we have a sentence like Die Maus ist im Haus, it is quite obvious to see what it means to an English person, that it means the mouse is in the house. Just as an example. And I'm using the mouse here because the mouse is an animal. Just like der Wolf or der Bär. See, these Angles would have had names for all these wild animals, which is why many animals have the same name in German as they do in English, like these two guys. Now, something else that is interesting about the German language is we like to combine words. We like to keep it efficient. So when we have two words already, like ice and bear, we just combine them into a third word. And we create an ice bear, a polar bear. Finger and gold, you get Goldfinger.
It was a 1964 James Bond film. The titular villain was portrayed by a leading German actor, Gerd Fröber. Today, Goldfinger is still considered the greatest Bond villain of all times, although I do think he's in big contention with Jaws, truthfully.
Oh, I never know. I don't know why people like him so much.
The braces.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's keep going with this. I mean, these Anglo-Saxons, they had hands. This is a hand in German. If you combine it with Ball, you have Handball. That's nice and simple, same as in English. If you combine your hand with a telephone, you get a Handtelefon, or for short, handy. And this is an example of an English loanword used in the German language and not being used in exactly the same way as in English. Because if a German person tells you they're using their handy, what they're talking about is a mobile. If you do the same thing in English, nobody will know what you're talking about. Believe me, I've tried. Now, this is a clever one. Let's say you have a hand and you want to put a shoe on that hand. Hand, shoe, that's a glove. Nice and easy. And if you're a person who makes shoes, you are a Schuhmacher. Let's try a more complicated word. I mean, we already know that if we combine Fuß, a foot, with Ball, we get Fußball, football. Now, if we now add the words Welt, which is the German for world, and Meister, which is the German for master or champion, we get Fußball-Weltmeister. 4 words in one. 4 words in one long word. And of course, it means football world champion. Now, Catherine, how often was Germany the football world champion, please?
Oh, I knew this was going to come up. Germany has won the World Cup 4 times. In 1954, 1974, 1990 and 2014. It nearly won in 1966 too, but lost to the host country, England.
Yeah, the famous Wembley goal. I'm sure nobody watching needed reminding of that. Let me give you another cool German word. Jäger. And this one is not the same or even similar in the English language, but I bet you've still heard of the word Jäger. Why?
In the Pacific Rim monster film franchise, humanity creates the Jaegers, gigantic humanoid mechas to fight
Mechas
monsters.
is fine, yeah.
Mechas.
Indeed, very cool film. I recommend it. They punch monsters in the face, these Jägers. Now, Jäger, I've already given you the word for Meister. So if you are very good at being a hunter, you might become the master of the hunt, or in other words, a Jägermeister. Here's another word that you'll probably have come across, but it's not the same in English and in German. And that word is Berg, which is the German for mountain. I believe this is a picture of the Zugspitze, which is the highest German Berg or mountain. Where have you heard that word before, you might be wondering now? Well, you probably heard it in this popular movie, Titanic, and the word is iceberg. Or if you have watched the film Valkyrie, you might have heard, or you might remember this guy called Stauffenberg.
Colonel Stauffenberg was the key figure in the 1944 20th of July plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. He was portrayed by Tom Cruise in the 2008 movie Valkyrie.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it doesn't work out so well.
Mm.
Now, what about this popular brand, outdoors brand? Where would you say this one is based, Catherine?
I mean, I would have assumed it was Germany, but I'm guessing possibly not.
Correct.
Aha! Berghaus translates as mountain house, but it is a British brand. The company is headquartered in Sunderland. The German name relates to the Germans' love for the outdoors.
That is absolutely right. And I was saying earlier, we do like our hiking. We do like our outdoors. Now, a true British person, you will know this traditional English dessert, Battenberg cake. Why would be the word Berg, mountain, in this particular cake? Now, the lady here on the right is the daughter of Queen Victoria, who was marrying her children throughout Europe, including to a German prince. And that was a German prince of the House of Battenberg. And at the wedding, this nice cake was presented and eaten, and it was named Battenberg cake after the house of the son-in-law of Queen Victoria.
The name of House Battenberg was changed to Mountbatten during World War I.
That is correct. And the chap below, Prince Philip, his surname became Mountbatten for exactly that reason. These Angles, you see, they were not Christians. They believed in Germanic gods. The most famous of them was Thor, or Thor, as they might have said. And as you probably know from the Marvel franchise, he wielded a mighty hammer. So these Angles, instead of saying things like, oh my god, they might have said, by Thor's hammer, by Thor's hammer. Again, very similar what you might have said in English and in German. Here is a picture of Thor, and in German, he would also have been called Donner. Donner. That is not to be confused with Döner, entirely different.
Also
By the way,
great.
Also great, and I maintain it is a traditional German food invented by Turkish immigrants, Gastarbeiter, guest workers, who invented the Döner kebab in its common modern form in the 1970s, when fast food became more, when takeaway food became more important.
Very big in Mannheim.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, a
it's
lot of
very
them.
big everywhere. It was invented in Berlin,
Uh-huh.
where it was the other day, so I could say that I ate a traditional German food, a traditional German Döner, just in the same way that chicken tikka masala is a traditional British dish, not an Indian one. Anyways, Thor was so important, both in England and in Germany, that the fourth day of the week was named after him. Thor's Day, or Thursday for short, and in German, Donnerstag. Donner and Tag. Now, Donner is also the word for thunder. You see, Thor is the god of thunder and lightning. So he's the god of Donner and Blitz. Not to be confused with those two guys. They're Santa's reindeers. But the word blitz you will have heard before as well, specifically the word blitzkrieg, notoriously applied in World War II, but that's not when it was invented. Blitzkrieg simply means war at lightning speed, because the enemy is attacked and encircled so quickly at lightning speed before they can effectively react to the attack. Now, back to our friend Thor. As I said, these Angles, they were living in the area that is modern England. And we all know that there's a Church of England, which is the predominant religion in England. And in that Church of England, they do not worship Thor or Odin. It's dedicated to Jesus Christ. So that's all different. So something must have happened. Something happened that meant Thor and Odin were out and Jesus was in. And I'm going to tell you what that thing was. It was that guy, the Pope, der Papst. I mean, not specifically that guy here. He is a relatively recent German Pope. No. We are talking about something that happened way back in the day. And on those days, the Pope was walking around, and on a slave market, he saw some Angles. As you know, these Angles were living in Britain. And he reckoned they were beautiful. Not just beautiful, but wunderschön. See, the German for schön is beautiful, but he added the word Wunder in front. What does Wunder mean? Wunder means miracle or wonder. So if something is wunderbar or wonderful, that means it's wonderful. So that is your miracle wonder for you. And you probably have heard the word before. We had a thing called Wirtschaftswunder back in the 1950s when Germany's economy recovered after World War II. We also had Das Wunder von Bern, the wonder of Bern in Switzerland of 1954 when Germany first won the World Cup. Amazingly, these guys were not even professional football players back then. Afterwards, they went back to their day jobs. Those were the days. Don't do it like that anymore. Now, you'll also have heard the word Wunderkind. We have our Mozart there, we have our Beethoven. Wunderkind means child protege, so a child who is very, very good at something, in this case, music. And of course, we know the word for kind or Kinder, plural, because we know the popular chocolate brand Kinder. Now, back to the Pope. So he sees these beautiful Angles, and he asks, wow, these guys are beautiful. Who are they? And he is told that they are Angles. And now the Pope is very clever, and he comes up with his witty wordplay, and he goes, Angles? Don't you mean angels? See, because they're so beautiful. And everyone was so impressed, and he was so pleased with what he had said, that he decided to send his friend Augustine to Britain to turn these angel-like, beautiful people to the Catholic Church, because he reckoned if they are called Angles and they look like angels, then they ought to be Christian, then they ought to be Catholic. So Augustine had to make it happen. And Augustine, of course, said, okay, Catherine.
So Augustine went to England to convert the Angles to Christianity. He became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. But on an unrelated note, the term okay may have been invented by German printers in New York, who used to mark drafts as ohne Korrektur, which means without correction.
Now, let me talk about the most famous of Angles. And his name is Alfred. German sentence here is Alfred ist ein Angel, not to be confused with an Engel, which means angel. No, he is an Angel. Alfred was really cool. Catherine?
He was. Alfred was called Alfred the Great because he protected England from the Vikings by building burgs named after the German word burg.
Indeed. I mean, he's actually the only English or the only British monarch who has that nickname, who is called the Great.
Yeah.
Some other contenders might have.
It was all downhill from there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Elizabeth I probably.
Yeah, true.
Probably
Elizabeth II was pretty good too, really.
Yeah, yes. Can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. Well, there's no international committee who decides who ought to be called the Great.
Yes.
It just happens like that in history. So I'm sorry for Elizabeth II and the first that it didn't happen. But back to our story. Here we go. The German word Burg. Now there's a nice castle here. A castle is a Burg. And oftentimes, when a new city was created, it would have been built around a Burg or castle. So you actually find the word Burg within the name of that city or country, like in this case, Luxembourg. Or Brandenburg, which is one of the federal states in Germany. And if you haven't heard of that, I'm sure you will have heard of the Brandenburger Tor, or Brandenburg Gate, a very famous landmark in Berlin. And if you haven't heard of that, I guarantee you will have heard of Hamburg, which is where I'm from. Very lovely city, biggest port in Germany, major tourist attraction. And if you haven't heard of that, I'm sure you have heard of the Hamburger, which was invented in Hamburg. It's also the name of a citizen from Hamburg. So, like myself and former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt down there, we can say, Ich bin ein Hamburger. I am a citizen of Hamburg. We also have the royal house of Sachsen-Coburg und Gotha. The same thing happened to this house as did to Battenberg, which, as you remember, became Mount Batten. It was a house of Prince Albert, who was married to Queen Victoria, and when they died, it continued to be the royal house in the UK. And it continues to be the royal house in the UK to this day, except the name was changed during World War I. The name was changed to the name of the castle, or Burg, you see below, so the name is now Windsor instead of Sachsen-Coburg und Gotha, because Sachsen-Coburg und Gotha sounded too German, and they didn't want that during World War I. So, I was asking the question in the beginning, what does England or England actually mean? Let's use this. We know that Alfred ist ein Angel. He united all the Germanic tribes and started to create a new nation that one day would become Angelland, or for short, if you haven't worked it out yet, England. The land of the Angles, the land of a proud people who came to this country from northern Germany, Schleswig-Holstein, who looked like angels, who fought off the Vikings. And those created and maintained the strong relationship between England and Germany. And that's why we have that strong connection between those two countries. Not necessarily the Welsh, although they're great as well. Tell you that.
Thanks. Well saved.
Okay. Well, yeah, that was our first lesson on learning German using history. If you liked it, give this video a like, leave a comment, and maybe we'll make some more. Who knows? Let's see how it goes. Catherine, thank you for helping.
Bye bye.
And we'll see you later. Auf Wiedersehen.